Want to know how you can gain access to capital to jumpstart your journey to entrepreneurial success? For entrepreneurs who are just starting out or those who have been in business for years, Minority Business Access is your podcast. Welcome to our show, where we will guide you in avoiding the pitfalls and thriving in your chosen business. Now, onto the show with your host, Solomon Ali.
Chris, I am so glad and excited that you are here today. Welcome to Minority Business Access. We're trying to help minorities, young entrepreneurs who are actually starting out a business, thinking about it. Now, I won't do great justice to introducing you, so I want you to introduce yourself to our audience and just tell them a little bit about who you are, what you've done, and things of that nature. And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions so we can try to help them figure out where they want to go.
Sure. So first and foremost, I want to thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. I've had the privilege of spending a few minutes talking to you and getting a little bit of your backstory. And here's my sense. My sense is you are a man of deep character and incredible resilience. And people like that change this world in a meaningful and purposeful way. So I have no idea of where this conversation is going to go, but my energy is up and I'm excited about just the opportunity of being here because my suspicion is good things are going to happen.
Absolutely.
So having said that, my background is fraught with a fair amount of success, but probably an equal, if not greater amount of failure. So born and raised in New York, went to school in Texas, became a technology entrepreneur at a relatively young age, built and sold a number of companies, had a bunch of failures, dealt with a fair amount of adversity. And as you well know, one of the things that I think all of us can appreciate is you learned a lot when things are going well. I think all of us learn more when things are going tough.
I can definitely agree to that.
So did that for about 15 years, really enjoyed the work that I did, and then got married, had a daughter, and then went through a dark period where I got divorced, was kind of rudderless, and found myself kind of just falling. And it wasn't about money, it was about purpose. And so I felt like I had lost my purpose, which is an incredibly bad feeling because it feels like the world falls out of you.
Chris, now that's something a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to do their business. They come up with a great idea or a concept and they want to jump in and they think they're going to make all this money and have all this freedom. Can you speak to that a little bit, what it's really like?
Yeah, so not to dispel the myth, but I think both of us have been in a position where we've achieved what sounds like from the outside the dream. We have the success, we have the money, we have the house. But to just kind of wrap it into the last question, I then, after kind of feeling lost, I found my calling. And what I do now is I help very successful folks find their calling, their significance, their fulfillment, their purpose in life. And it's a game changer because, and if I can share a little bit about the conversation we had earlier.
Yes, please.
We've both been at the top of the mountain, and candidly, it sucks. And here's why it sucks. Because in the quest for the almighty dollar and the success, oftentimes we sell out our significance.
Yes.
And so what, here's what's important, right? So in the world that I inhabit, I have a community of folks that are billionaires on down. And what defines this group is not the size of their wallets or the length of their, financial stakes. They're all super successful. They're all way more successful than me. Way. But what they all strive for is significance, purpose, validation, relationships, and love in their life. In building their empires and in creating their fiefdoms, there's a cost. Maybe it's a relationship with a family member. Maybe it's their health. Maybe it's a sense of purpose around legacy or philanthropy. And what I've experienced is that all of these folks, if given the chance to focus on their significance in lives, they find a few things. They find purpose. They find fulfillment. They find relationships that may have been strained in the context of them becoming the kings and the queens that they are. All of that's real.
You know, Chris, I want to ask you something, and I'm going to go back to the conversations that we were having earlier. I know in my life, you had asked me, about my name. And so I had changed my name from Richard Carter to Solomon Ali. I left the RC in there so that I always remember what that struggle was like. But I lost everything in like 2006, and it was very painful after building a business up and thinking that it would last forever and sacrificing relationships like with my daughter. And I didn't think I was sacrificing that relationship at the time because I would cut out time during the day, go see her, take her to cheerleading, take her to different places. And in doing so, when she was about 28, 30, she told me, she said, well, Dad, yeah, you took me, but you were on the phone. And that was like 28, 30 years ago. And it didn't dawn on me that, hey, I thought just being present was there. And so I had given up so much, Chris, and pursuing being an entrepreneur. And it's like a cesspool. You get just sucked into it. You start out thinking you're going to have this freedom and this money. And if you just work hard and do a really good job, all these great things will happen. It didn't happen that way for me. What can you tell the people who are just looking?
So I have a few thoughts. So in 1996, at the ripe old age of about 28, 29, I was given a book written by a guy named Bob Buford, and it was called Halftime. And it was about the transition of success to significance. And what he talked about is how men in particular hit this interesting midpoint where they've achieved something, and for all intents and purposes, they should be successful and they should feel like they're top of the mountain, and they feel empty, or maybe they feel like a fraud. You know, here's why I'm really happy to be here, if I'm being just totally honest with you. You know, we talked for a second in terms of setting this up, and you light up when you talk about your daughter. We haven't talked about the millions you've made. We haven't talked about the houses you have. We have had such a non-material, superficial, bullshit conversation. We talked about your daughter. And when you talk about your daughter, you smile. You're leaning in, right? And I hear a few things. I hear regret in your voice.
Yes, I do have regrets
for what you said, but much more importantly than that, I hear the realization of the fact that there's no doubt you did everything you thought you should do when your daughter was in cheerleading practice and you were driving her around. But as I told you a little while ago, buddy, you were the coolest Uber driver before Uber driver was around. Did you love your daughter? Sure you did. Were you loving her in the way that she recognized and wanted? No, but that's not because you didn't love her. That's because you were doing what you needed to do at the time that you thought was the best for her, and you thought that was enough. Here's the great news. All of us, I'm 52 years old, all of us have the opportunity, if we realize what we've done, to go back and to make the changes that give you the relationship that you want with your daughter, or with the wife that you have, or with the brother that you may be estranged from. And I see this day in and day out. And what we talked about is the fact that you were on a journey of character. Yep, you were an entrepreneur. Yep, you were successful. Yep, you've seen the highs of the highs and the lows of love. But what you've really done is you've defined yourself based on, we said this when it came to your name. What I experience of you in the short time that we've spent together is high integrity, deep relationship care, a sense of purpose around what you're doing right now and helping other individuals with their entrepreneurial journey. My comment to you is, if you today were talking to your 25-year-old self, what would you be saying? And it's what you talk about on your podcast. This is your purpose and calling in life, and you do it with strength, you do it with integrity, you do it with truth, and you do it with a real heart that, to me, having just met you 10 minutes ago, is really apparent.
Wow. So let me ask Chris, what would you say to the entrepreneurs who are starting? I know you know all these great billionaires and you work with them and you have all of this going on. Okay, so you know where their new entrepreneur is today. You know where they're trying to get. And just that circle that you're in, I know some of them probably feel the same way I have. Hey, I gave up a lot to achieve this level of success. And was it really worth it?
Sure.
Because we all get there when we're at the end. It's like, oh, wait a minute. All right, I did almost $500 million. Is it worth it? And what I gave up, I'm starting to doubt whether or not my life had meaning. And so what I would like to do is try to make sure new entrepreneurs coming are a little bit more well-rounded before you sit back and chase that new business and everything and pour yourself in it incorrectly and get to where I'm at or where I was when I was going to take my own life because I had lost $100 and something million. I don't want someone to do that may not get a phone call at the right time. And not know that, hey, wait, there will be a tomorrow, whether you're successful in business or not.
So my answer may not be the most popular of answers, but it's the truth that I live day in and day out. And it's also the experience I have in working with a phenomenal group of very, very successful entrepreneurs. Here's the secret formula that seems to be common sense, but isn't common practice. And at the end of the day, you can't lose focus on what's most important to you. So no question, building your business is important and you need to stay focused on that. But oftentimes, if you're not focusing on, there are really three things that stand out. The first one is health is the ultimate currency. If you don't believe that, just wait long enough and you'll figure that out. So, and I'm not talking about health when you're 60, 70, and 80 years old. If you're not eating right, if you're not sleeping right, if you're not focusing on the health that allows you to be the best version of yourself that you are, you're selling yourself out. So health is key at whatever age it is. Second thing is everybody needs to grow, both in the context of what they're doing professionally, entrepreneurially, but outside of that as well. You know, you may be the coach of your daughter's cheerleader squad. You may be the missionary that goes on mission trips all around the world. If you serve just yourself, you will be a lonely person, male, female, old, young. You have to find things, including your work, that are greater than you and embrace them, because you grow, you learn, and you benefit from this journey called life on this rock that's rolling around the sun by serving others in ways that help them, help the community, as well as help you. Wow. So purpose and growth is critical. And the third thing, and we haven't talked about this, but I'd be really surprised if you didn't agree with me, you got to focus on relationships. Figure out your top 5. It's your daughter, it's your wife, it's God. Figure out those top 5 relationships that are most important to you and treat them preciously. Preciously.
Wow. That's amazing. That is amazing. And I totally agree with that. And I wish I would have known that earlier because, you know, we read the books, things like that. And we say, okay, I'd never heard of a person on their deathbed asking for more money. They were asking for, relationships, their wife, their kids, and things of that nature. And, you know, and so I tried to do that in the sense that I understood, which was physically be there, but I didn't understand I was not mentally there and engaging. And so like now I'm sitting back, I'm trying to make up 32 years and you can't make it up. You don't get to go back. So if we can share something with you guys that will keep you from making those mistakes, because it's great to make the money and develop a business, but that business, you're going to have ups and downs. You're not going to always be on top. But the relationships that you develop throughout your life, Chris, and I think you would agree, last forever.
They do. And as you were talking, I had a thought that hit my head that maybe we're sharing with your listeners. So the question that you clearly are now asking yourself, whether you realize it or not, and I got this from a gentleman by the name of David Brooks. The question is, are you living for your resume or are you living for your eulogy? right? And if we live for our resume, as David Brooks says, and quick plug, there's like a 4-minute, 11-second, 5-minute, 11-second, 5-minute, 2-second video on YouTube. And it's David Brooks. Are you living for your resume or your eulogy? It's the best 5 minutes of any piece of media that I've ever watched, television, movies. It's the best 5 minutes, because what it does is it gives you clarity on how you want to define your life. If it's 30 years from now and people are speaking at your funeral, you want them to say you made a lot of money. You want them to say you had a lot of houses, you had a lot of businesses, or do you want them to say that Solomon was a man I looked up to? Solomon was a man who I saw as a mentor. Solomon was a great dad. Solomon was a great child of Christ. Solomon was a man I admired, I respected, and I loved. That's how we want to go out.
Wow. That's amazing. Could you repeat that one more time for the listeners so they can know where to go to listen to that?
Sure. It's David Brooks. He just wrote a book called Second Mountain. I actually had the privilege at a conference last week of getting a chance to meet him. There was a point where we were all asking for questions, and I got up and I went to a microphone and I said, I'm not asking a question. I'm making a statement. And the statement is that I've never been so moved by somebody who, in the context of a YouTube video, has helped me retask where I want to focus. So It's David Brooks. Are you living for your resume or your eulogy? You can, if you search it on Google or you search it on YouTube, you'll find the video. I cannot recommend it enough because it helped me repurpose and retask myself from chasing the almighty dollar to tracing real significance and purpose in my life.
Okay. Wow, that is amazing. What would you want to share, Chris, that we haven't talked about?
This has been really good, and I feel drawn to you because I sense that you and I connect across pretty much everything that we've talked about. At the end of the day, if there are 3 things that I would say, the first thing is you have to focus on health, personal growth, and relationships. If you lose sight of that, you're ungrounded. That's one thought. The second thought that I would say is, as you go through this life, showing kindness costs nothing. Being humble costs nothing. Yet it's a phenomenal gift to the people that are around you. And the third thing, as we mentioned a little while ago, in the community that I serve, I use a lot of little silly tools and techniques that tend to really get benefit and validation and love into this world that I inhabit. And the things that we do are, as an example, in September we did a program called a random act of kindness, where everyone in this group had to go out and do one random act of kindness. So people bought coffee for folks, people gave extra tips. And what I find is when you give selflessly to others, that gift tends to come back to you as much, if not more. So the benefit is not just to the giver, it's also to the givee. I mentioned to you a little while ago, what would it take for you to do a 30-day challenge where you just did one thing that was important to you? And we used the example of your daughter. And so the question is, for 30 days, could you send your daughter a text message, an email, a phone call, write her a note? And if you did that to your daughter, how would that change your relationship? Okay. The other program that I've instituted this year is one level beyond. And so think about a relationship that's important to you. If you did one thing more, so let's assume you're talking about your bride. What would it take for you to bring her flowers one day when she wasn't expecting it, or write her a love letter? And maybe you've married 10 years, 100 years, whatever the case may be. What's one thing more you can do in the relationships that matter to you that can create significance, impact, and validation in a way that truly benefits you both?
Wow. Now, Chris, how would my audience reach out to you to get the help that they may need, either for coaching or some mentoring or participate in one of the programs?
So my email address is Erapmus, ERAPMUS at iCloud.com. That was actually the name of the first company that I had, and there's a story behind that. So they're more than welcome to reach out. In terms of coaching, I run an organization. I really don't do individual coaching, but what I do is I have a newsletter that I send out to my community that I would be happy to modify for anyone who's interested in getting it. And that's where things like David Brooks' video, or I'm also a big fan of a gentleman by the name of Sam Harris and others, where I share some of that information.
Okay, great. Well, Chris, it's been so awesome to have you on MBA Minority Business Access, and I enjoyed you, and I think we have a lot in common, and it's just been a wonderful, I'm going to say energy level.
Yeah. Solomon, you're an exceptional human being. Your story resonates at a real soulful level for me, and I suspect your listeners get a chance to hear you all the time. This is my first exposure to you. I am truly grateful, and I acknowledge the journey that you've been on, and it seems like in the path that you've taken, you're now in a great space, and I commend you for it.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much, and appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Take care.
Chris.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Minority Business Access Podcast. Connect with us at solomonrcali.info to leave a review and access more resources. We hope you enjoyed this show and found great value. See you at the next episode.